Conor McGregor hasn't fought in 5 years. 5 years. And somehow, tickets to watch him fight Max Holloway are reselling at over $45,000. Let that number sit for a second, because that number tells you everything you need to know about what is actually happening right now. This is not nostalgia. This is not the UFC doing McGregor a favor. This is a market speaking with complete clarity about what Conor McGregor still means to the sport. Even after the injuries, even after the time away, even after every person who said his moment had passed, the ticket market just called all of them wrong, loudly. And if you were one of those people saying McGregor was done, that his cultural pull had evaporated, that the years away had turned him into a footnote, you owe the market an apology, because $45,000 per seat is not a footnote. That is a phenomenon. Think about what that number actually means in context. We are not talking about a championship fight between two active, ranked, Primera fighters. We are talking about a man who has not competed since July of 2021, who broke his leg in his last fight, who has spent the better part of half a decade away from professional competition, and the secondary market is pricing his return at levels that most title fights cannot touch. That is not hype manufactured by a promotional machine. That is organic demand from a global audience that has been waiting for this moment and is willing to pay almost any price to be in the building when it happens. The commercial reality of Conor McGregor is not something that can be argued with. It can only be acknowledged. But here is where the honest conversation has to start, because excitement and reality are two very different things. And the people who are going to watch this fight expecting 2015 Conor McGregor, the version that walked through Jose Aldo in 13 seconds, the version that made the Mandalay Bay feel like it had been taken over by an entire nation, the version that made every person in the building believe something historic was about to happen before the first punch was thrown. Those people are setting themselves up for disappointment. That version of McGregor may not exist anymore. The only question that matters on fight night, is whether the version that does exist is good enough to handle Max Holloway across 5 hard rounds at 170 pounds. And that question is genuinely difficult to answer, not because we lack information, but because the information we have points in 2 different directions simultaneously. On one side, you have everything McGregor represents: the power, the timing, the psychological edge, the ability to create moments that defy conventional competitive logic. On the other side, you have 5 years of inactivity, a serious injury, a sport that has continued evolving at the elite level without him, and an opponent who has been one of the most consistently active and consistently prepared fighters on the planet during every single one of those 5 years. Because Max Holloway is not a gift matchup. He is not a manufactured comeback opponent designed to make McGregor look good in front of a friendly crowd. He is not a hand-picked opponent selected because the competitive math is favorable. Max Holloway has beaten Dustin Poirier. He has beaten Charles Oliveira. He knocked out Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 in one of the single greatest individual performances this sport has ever produced, a performance so spectacular that it immediately entered the conversation about the best finishes in UFC history. He has been in constant high-level competition, active, sharp, technically refined, battle-tested, while McGregor has been away from the cage for the better part of half a decade. If you build a profile of the worst possible opponent for a returning McGregor, you would end up with something that looks a lot like Max Holloway. The stylistic argument for this fight is real, and it deserves credit. 2 elite strikers, a weight class where neither man is compromised by a brutal, body-destroying weight cut. No wrestling-heavy game plan designed to neutralize McGregor's offense before it can start. No elite grappler waiting to drag this fight to the canvas and control it for 25 minutes. The UFC picked Holloway because if any fight gives McGregor a legitimate shot at looking spectacular, at producing the kind of explosive highlight reel moment that validates a comeback narrative, this is the matchup that gives him the best chance at doing it. Stand and bang with a striker. Let Conor be Conor. That logic is sound. That logic is also exactly why Holloway is dangerous. Because the sport has changed in 5 years. The technical evolution that has happened at the elite level while McGregor was gone is not cosmetic. It is structural. The calf kick alone, which was present before McGregor's last fight, but has since become a fundamental tool at every level of the sport, has restructured how striking exchanges work at the highest level. Fighters now check it, counter it, use it as a setup, integrated into combinations in ways that were not standard 5 years ago. The wrestling depth across the lightweight and welterweight divisions has deepened considerably. The conditioning standards have moved. The film study and game planning processes have become more sophisticated. A fighter coming back after 5 years doesn't just face ring rust in the traditional sense. He faces a version of the sport that kept evolving at pace while he was standing still. That gap is real. And Holloway has been inside that evolved version of the sport continuously, adapting to it in real time against elite opposition. Dustin Poirier articulated this tension better than almost anyone. He said it directly. The power is still there. Conor McGregor's left hand does not expire because of inactivity. The counter-punching instincts that made him one of the most technically precise strikers this sport has ever seen do not simply disappear because he has been away. Those qualities are structural, built into his mechanics over years of repetition. What nobody knows, what cannot be known until the moment he steps into the cage against a live, elite opponent, is whether the timing, the reflexes, the lateral movement, the ability to read and react in real time, the 5-round physical conditioning are at the level required to make that entire system function against a fighter of Holloway's quality. Poirier knocked McGregor out in Abu Dhabi. He has first-hand knowledge of what a compromised McGregor looks like inside the cage. And even he admitted, with the credibility of someone who has been on the receiving end of McGregor at his best, that the danger is still completely real if the timing is there. Poirier also made a point about Holloway that cuts in the other direction. He noted that Holloway, who has always been celebrated for his durability, his iron chin, his ability to absorb punishment and keep moving forward, has touched the canvas more in his last 3 fights than in his entire career before that. Time catches up with every fighter. Holloway is still a young man in absolute terms, but the accumulated damage of years of elite-level competition at the highest level of the sport is a real variable. If McGregor can find the timing early, if that left hand lands clean on a Holloway who has absorbed more damage than he used to, the calculus changes completely. Max Holloway, for his part, is not losing sleep over any of this analysis. He has said with complete clarity that he is not looking for a long, grinding, 5-round decision. He wants a finish. He wants a highlight reel moment on the biggest stage this sport can offer during International Fight Week. He wants to send a message loud enough that the entire MMA world hears it. And the thing about Holloway that makes him genuinely, specifically dangerous in this matchup is exactly what Brendan Schaub identified with precision. If this fight survives into round 3, round 4, round 5, the cardio advantage swings decisively and maybe irreversibly toward Max McGregor has never been a 5-round fighter. His power, his timing, his entire offensive system is built for explosive moments in the early rounds. He has never needed to be more than that, because he has almost always found the finish before the later rounds became relevant. But if Holloway survives the early storm, if he takes McGregor's best shots and keeps coming, the fight becomes a very different contest. Brendan Schaub put McGregor at plus 500 on the betting line. Others have him at plus 300. The range of those estimates reflects a genuine uncertainty around a fighter nobody has seen compete in 5 years. But even the most generous estimate makes McGregor a significant underdog. The people who study this professionally, who build their assessments on competitive evidence rather than narrative, are not giving McGregor the benefit of the doubt based on star power or historical legacy. They are reading the tape. They're looking at what Holloway has done recently and what McGregor has not done recently. And the tape says this is a very, very difficult fight for a returning McGregor. Joe Rogan talked about the Aldo fight, about the feeling in Las Vegas that week, about the Irish fans who filled the Mandalay Bay and sang together in the hallways like they were waiting for something that had never happened before in the history of combat sports. He said he had never witnessed anything like it. He said the anticipation felt bigger than the fight itself. And the fight ended in 13 seconds with one of the most stunning knockouts in UFC history. That combination, the cultural electricity of the build-up and the sporting perfection of the result, is what made McGregor into something beyond an MMA fighter. He became a phenomenon, a cultural event, the kind of figure that transcends the sport he competes in and enters the broader conversation about celebrity, personality, and what it means to be the most compelling person in any room. Las Vegas is about to find out whether that phenomenon can be recreated, whether the city can feel that way again. Whether the Irish fans who are flying across the ocean and paying $45,000 for a seat can get the version of McGregor that justifies every dollar of that price. Michael Chandler has watched all of this from the outside. After years of his own saga with McGregor, the Ultimate Fighter, the training camp, the pullout, the possible rebooking, the endless back and forth that consumed a significant portion of both men's recent careers, Chandler finally accepted that the fight is not happening inside the UFC. He said it feels like a million miles away now. He said he has no emotions about it. And then he said something that matters, that the sport is better when Conor McGregor is training and on his way back. He is right. And he said he will be cage-side watching. Because whatever happens on fight night, this is a kind of event that everyone in combat sports needs to see in real time. The worst-case scenario deserves to be named honestly, because pretending it does not exist does not make it less real. The worst case is a McGregor who looks diminished, not defeated in a close, competitive fight, where both men gave everything and the better man on the night won. Diminished, outclassed, a version of McGregor that confirms every doubt instead of silencing it, that validates the people who said the years away were too many, the injury too serious, the sport too evolved, the opponent too prepared. That outcome will be painful to watch. Not because McGregor losing is a tragedy. Fighters lose, even great ones, but because a performance that looks like the end of something rather than the continuation of something would be difficult for the sport to process. The crowd in Las Vegas will be full of Irish fans who traveled across an ocean. They deserve a McGregor who shows up completely ready. The sport deserves it. The moment deserves it. But the best case, a sharp, explosive, technically precise McGregor who finds the timing in the early rounds, who lands a left hand clean, who produces a finish that nobody outside his camp fully believed was still possible. That outcome opens a door that has been closed for years. It changes every conversation about what comes next. It puts a superior fight on the table as a real possibility. It resurrects the comeback narrative in a way that generates commercial interest the sport has not seen since McGregor's prime. It makes International Fight Week the kind of event that people will be talking about for the next decade. The entire MMA world is going to be watching. The Irish fans will be singing in the casino hallways again. The arena will be sold out. The pay-per-view numbers will be unlike anything the sport has produced since McGregor's last dominant run. And on fight night, after all the analysis and all predictions and all the honest assessments of what 5 years away really means for a fighter, two men are going to walk into the cage, and one of them is going to show everyone exactly who he still is. The only question is which one.